entertained? Are you not entertained?
Welcome everybody to this employee guide on Domina here on Additional Pylons Games. Today, going to go through all the different employees, what they do, what they cost, what their abilities are, and some general strategy tips for each of the different employees. I was looking online, couldn't find any good employee guides as far as just like video guides, and so I decided to experiment, try out the different employees, and give them a go and create my own little tutorial here. So if it's your first time here on the channel, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the daily content that I put out. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into the game, and I'm just basically going to show you each individual employee by themselves, explain their abilities, what they do, their costs, that sort of thing, and then the general strategy and how I use these employees. So thanks again, and we'll see you in game in just a second. Alright guys, first up, we've got the Agent. Dirty work is his specialty. If you need some spying, stealing, or wager on pit fights, this is your man. So let's go ahead and hire him, and let's take a look at what he does here in the game. So, Agent, so you can see here that he's got a little bit of a stealth meter right here. And basically what this means is that the stealthier he is, the better able he will be to complete all the missions that he's got for you. So all his missions are, they're completely free other than the carnal entertainment. They just take time. And so he's basically, he only costs 13 gold, so he's kind of this, you can kind of think of the Agent as a dispensable spy, pretty much. If he messes up and dies, well, you just pay him not to be, not to give up your name, and not to hurt your reputation, and then you can just, purchase another one and get going on that. So steel weaponry is exactly, and steel armor are exactly what they sound like. The Agent tries to sneak into a camp, they try to steal some weapons or armor, and then provide it to one of your gladiators. Spy on Legate and spy on Magistrate are basically the same thing, but basically what your spy does is he tries to learn a secret or some details that they don't want to get, what one of the characters don't want to get out, and then you're actually able to sell it to the opposite person. So if you spy on the Magistrate, find out a secret, you can sell that secret to the Legate, get a little extra money that way. And then you've got carnal entertainment, which is exactly what it sounds like. He basically hires a bunch of strippers and such for the gladiators to keep them happy. You can also organize pit fights. The cool thing about this is that you can wager your coins, organize a pit fight, and hopefully win some gold there. So instead of actually going into and doing the attend pit fight and losing gold, you get free pit fights, and not only that, you can actually bet on yourself and hopefully make a lot of coin that way. So the Agent is kind of this, I don't want to say high risk, high reward, but he's basically like, you purchase him for cheap, understanding that if he dies, then you didn't really lose a whole lot on him. And he's there to do some of the shadier, I guess, some of the shadier, seedier types of things for your gladiators, for your Ludus. All right, let's move on to the next character. Next up, we've got the Medicus, basically your healer. Pretty much sounds just the way that you think he was. He's there to make sure that your gladiators stay healthy, that they don't die from injury, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and hire him. 34 coins. He's a pretty good value, and let's take a look at what he does here. So you can see that he's got a little button here for auto healing, so automatically heal any gladiators who are hurt free of cost. So this is just a nice small way to save a little money here and there. You don't have to hit the heal button every time you go in and have your gladiators fight. You can just hit this little button here and will automatically heal them in the same way that hitting the auto train button on your Doctori trains all your characters. So it's a nice little thing that you got here. And so all of the upgrades do the same thing, which is basically increased treatment speed. They have various different costs. So antibiotics cost less than anesthesia. Hand washing obviously is pretty cheap. Painkillers is pretty expensive. But basically all the Medicus does is make sure that your gladiators stay in fighting shape. So, which is really nice. It takes another thing off your hands. You don't have to think about this. I would say that the Medicus is probably best suited for one if you're in a really bad bind and for some reason maybe you have a big group battle, and then all of a sudden most of your gladiators survive, but they're really desperately hurt. You can quick buy the Medicus if you've got an open slot and make sure that they're all healed up, or vice versa. If you have a few characters that do most of your fighting, and they tend to get a lot, if you have one or two gladiators that are really your go-to, your mainstays, you can make sure to have a Medicus so that they stay up and healthy at all times. I wouldn't say that he's super necessary. There are some other employees that also provide healing, and I think that they're a little bit more valuable overall. But the Medicus, it's not a bad choice. It's not what I use, I would say. So let's go ahead and move on to the next employee. Next up, we've got the Architect. Architect provides Ludus upgrades, builds stationary additions to your Ludus for comfort and profit. And the important part is right there in those parentheses. Upgrades stay even if he leaves. This is what makes the Architect vital and really important to get early on. He should be the first employee that you get, in my opinion. He's 65 gold, so a little bit more expensive than some of the other characters that you've got, but let's go ahead and take a look at him. So here we go. Now, lots of upgrades here for the Architect. The Architect, the main reason why you get him early is because these benefits last basically until your game ends. So you may as well get him as quickly as possible, build the things that you need to have, and then once you've got everything that you think you need, you can fire him and open up a new slot because his upgrades stay even if he leaves. So lots of different stuff that he does here. So we're just going to start with the top and work our way through. So a palace basically is like one of those wooden cross stick figures, and all it does is decrease training time. This means that all of your gladiators, when they train on one of these paulus, I'm not really sure how to say it. When they train them, they train a little bit quicker. That training benefit will last basically for the entire time that they're training on that palace. And it's basically added value every time that they train because they train a little bit quicker, right? And so we've got the baths next. Clean gladiator, happy gladiator, increases morale, decreases injury recovery time. So you can see that this is a permanent way to increase the healing speed of your gladiators and makes them a little bit happier, right? So there you go. Happy gladiators stick around more often and they're less likely to request for their freedom. Gather stones. Heavy stones placed in your gladiator's training area decrease strength training time. So the paulus, whatever you call it, decreases training time for everything. The gather stones does it specifically for just for strength training, right? So it's another way to, again, get some added value by decreasing training time so that your gladiators train faster and get to really good stats quickly. Wall reinforcement. Prevent damage during natural disasters and decreases the chance of gladiator escape. So if you want to keep your investment here within the Ludus, wall reinforcement is a pretty decent way to do so. Grain shelter. So renting space local farmers, you're able to share some crop and generate food for the Ludus. So this is just a little way of making sure that you have enough resources or mitigating the resource loss of having a large Ludus. This produces food. The wine cellar and the water well do the exact same thing for wine cellar for the wine, water well for water. They allow you to better withstand against the resource costs of upkeeping a bunch of gladiators. Hot coal pits. These are the same as a palace or a gather stones, but this is for agility training time. And with these three things, the gather stones, dig hot coal pits, and the palace, it's important to note that these actually you can see here we've got a little slot. So this character, when a palace is built, it will be built here, and then if you build a second one, it'll be built in the next slot up here, and then the third one, and so on, and it'll just go like this. What you actually need to do is you can drag the palace around to the different training slots as you like, or you can drag the gladiators onto the correct thing that you want. So a good strategy is to do, if you want to, you can build 5 palaces, 5 gather stones, and 5 coal pits, and have someone who the bottom row just trains agility, middle row just trains strength, that sort of thing. But it's important to note that these benefits for training only benefit the gladiator that's standing in that training slot, so to speak. Private gladiator quarters. This is for your champion. It keeps them nice and happy so that your best gladiator, most likely, your best gladiator is very happy and is willing to stay around longer, and so you don't lose, again, your investment from him either escaping or wishing for his release. We already covered water well and apothecary. With more space to store herbs and medicine, the Medicus is more effective. Healing time decreases accordingly. So this is kind of strange in that it's an upgrade to another employee. So if you really want to go with the Medicus, you want to make sure you get the apothecary so that he's even more effective at training up and healing up your characters. All right, time to move on. So like I said, time to move on. But basically, you want to get the architect early. Make sure that you get some good value out of him. Build the stuff that you need built, and then fire him so that you can hire in some other characters that you need their benefits long term, so to speak. All right, next up we've got the Faber. Faber is basically the Roman word or the Latin word for blacksmith. So this is your blacksmith. This it basically decreases the cost of upgrading your units and makes sure that they stayed repaired. and does a couple other things here. So let's go ahead and hire the Faber, our blacksmith, and take a look at him. So you can see here, we've got auto repair enabled, and auto upgrade, it can be enabled if you unlock it. So auto repair automatically repairs damaged equipment free of cost. So this is a nice way of saving some money here on your armor and weapon upgrades, which is basically what the Faber is here to do. This is a way for you to decrease your maintenance and your upgrade costs for your Gladiator. So automatic upgrade, which this is great. When a Faber has a spare moment, he will automatically upgrade a random piece of equipment on a random Gladiator free of cost. So one of the best ways to use this actually is if you have a lot of Gladiators, you want to actually not equip any of your low-level Gladiators and only have maybe 5 or 8 Gladiators equipped. And then these upgrades, what you're trying to do is make it so that the Faber only upgrades really high-level equipment. So you have a couple Gladiators who are well equipped, and then they're the only ones with equipment, so they're the only ones that can be upgraded. So you're automatically upgrading from a $500 piece of equipment or 500 gold piece of equipment, auto upgrading to the next level of equipment, saving yourself a lot of money. Improved furnace, better tools, repair speed is increased. Helmet blueprints, weapon blueprints, shield blueprints, and armor blueprints. This is basically do the same thing. They make upgrading that specific part of your Gladiator's weapons and armor a little bit cheaper. Improved anvil, again, better tools, repair speed is increased. And then you've got rebuild nets, automatically mount new nets on Rotarius who have lost one in battle at no cost. So this is a free way of just making sure that all your Rotariuses, whatever the plural is, I'm not really sure on Latin, making sure that they always have a net available, so that as a part of their kit. So again, long term, you want to keep the blacksmith around, the Faber around, so that he can upgrade your equipment, so that he gets you cheaper upgrades. Once you get to the point where you have a lot of Gladiators who are max level on all their equipment, then you can probably consider getting rid of the Faber in favor of other employees. But to start with, he's definitely very powerful in that he can give you free upgrades, that he can repair your equipment, keep your Gladiators' equipment in top shape so that they can fight at their best. Next up, we've got the Educator. An Educator helps turn your Gladiators into self-actualized men that function at peak performance at all times. So basically, the Educator, it seems a little strange. You would think that you would want someone else working in your Gladiator school, in your Ludus, but the Educator actually has some pretty powerful abilities. So let's go ahead and look at those here. So, Mr. Educator, teachings of Galen increase max stamina and stamina recharge rate. So this is great for making sure that your Gladiators are a little bit more healthier in battle, and they've got the ability to basically to last a little bit longer. Teachings of Dioscorides, I don't know. Gladiators learn that cleanliness can help clean their body and heal more quickly after injury. So this is another little healing thing that they can do. Philosophy, basically +1 AI fighting proficiency for your Gladiators. So this helps them to get better up to where they're fighting well on their own, if you want to go that route instead of fighting yourself, which I like to do. Anatomy, this is the big one. This is pretty critical, actually. Learning the weakest parts of the human anatomy, Gladiators strike more efficiently, plus 25% attack damage and 25% critical hit chance. That's big. That's really big. This is a good reason to keep the Educator around. Is an overall just flat 25% increase to your damage and to your critical hit rate is going to make your Gladiators very deadly. Psychology, if your Gladiators lose a battle, they don't result in a morale debuff, basically, from losing, which that's a nice little thing. And focus, by learning to focus, all Gladiator training time is decreased. So this is the other big one as well. So you can use your Educator to really bump up the speed at which your Gladiators get to a level where they can fight well on their own. Between philosophy, which gives your AI fighting proficiency, the quicker training time with focus, and then anatomy to really do a lot of damage, increased damage in the Gladiator arena. The Educator is actually a pretty decent choice for keeping around long term, especially in conjunction with a couple of the other employees. So again, the idea is basically to get the Educator quickly, get them early on, so that you can train up your Gladiators, at least train up an initial set of Gladiators so that they're very proficient early on, and they can hold you over until you've got some of your other Gladiators well trained up, if you want to get rid of the Educator at some point. But really, anatomy and focus are really very, very powerful abilities. So I tend to keep the Educator around once I keep him, or once I buy him. But that's just my general strategy. So basically, he's about, if I were to characterize him, the Educator is about getting your Gladiators up to a competent level as quickly as possible, and then educating them beyond that. as much as you can. So really, when I go for it, focus and philosophy are the first two ones that I get for him, and then from there, anatomy, and then these teachings followed by psychology being the last one that I get, because I don't want to plan on my gladiators losing. Anyways, so that's how I use the Educator, but definitely one of the employees that I tend to keep around for a long time. Alright, next up we've got the MTOR. He reduces costs on upgrades and resources. A skilled negotiator and merchant, he can buy everything cheaper and influence the legate's favor. So 45 coin to hire the Emptor. This guy is basically your, I don't know, he's a slick merchant dude, is basically the way that you can think about him. So market upgrades, obviously this is exactly what it sounds like. Haggling ability results in reduced wine, food, and water costs when you purchase from the market. And same thing with equipment upgrade haggling. Reduced upgrade costs for all Gladiator equipment. So you can pair this with the reduced cost from the Faber, which we talked about earlier, and then just decreasing the cost, basically your upkeep costs in purchasing all of the different equipment that you need. And then you can also monetize friendship in a couple different ways to help with the legate. So Emptor's relationship with the legate allows him to increase the legate's favor with your ludus automatically every few days. So basically, the reason why you would do this is because the legate and the magistrate, they are the ones who provide you with matches, and by getting on their good side, they provide you with more favorable matches that are easier, matches that give you more better rewards. And so by increasing their temperament every couple of days, this means that eventually they're going to start giving you easier fights, better fights, more profitable fights. Again, you can use some bribes, so you can all your bribes basically are more effective every time that you send him wine. And then legate slaves allows your relationship with the legate. You can get a discount when buying slaves and gladiators from the military. So this guy is really about making sure that you are in the good side of the legate and making sure that you get the maximum value out of that relationship. And then you also get the maximum value out of your purchasing at the market. I don't really tend to use the MTOR that much. I just feel like there are other ways that you can increase your relationship with the legate. One, through events, and two, through just sending him a bunch of wine. And two, with the market upgrades, they don't cost that much anyways. I'd rather save money on doing other things. But this isn't to say that you couldn't go with the MTOR if you're looking for, especially on Endless, if you're going for like a very much a value added, a value saving kind of dynamic for your gladiator, for your ludus school. You could definitely go with the MTOR, but it's just not something that I tend to go with. Anyways, let's move on to the next employee. Next up, we've got the Haruspex. Makes sacrifices of the god. Making a sacrifice can win favor from the gods. 72 coin to hire him. He's a little bit more expensive than some of the other employees that you've got here. Let's take a look at his abilities. So, we can do some curses over here. We'll get to those in just a minute. But you've also got interesting ways to deal with the magistrate and the legate. So you can increase their favor, so sacrifice some resources to increase the legate's favor, and do the same thing with the magistrate. Or you can sacrifice some resources to see them dead. So this, if your relationship with them gets terrible, you kill them off, and then you get to start a new relationship with the new legate or the new magistrate that comes in. So interesting little way of dealing with the relationships there. And then you've got curses. So sacrifice some resources to weaken your opponents in the next games. It was cursing HP. Fighting proficiency is the same thing. Dull your opponent's fighting proficiency, and then Jupiter's blessing, so that your opponent remove any of Jupiter's blessings from your opponents in the next game. So what this means is that the Jupiter's blessings that you have down here, you're able to basically remove them using the Haruspex, so that your opponents don't have any of those benefits. The Haruspex honestly is really best used, or the general strategy is to use the Haruspex for the end game, really. The last battle, the final battles. The day before the last battle, or a couple days before the last battle, you use the curse opponents. You use all three of these. You hire them. You weaken your opponents, and then you're able to get through the big boss battles. This isn't to say that you couldn't keep the Haruspex and just curse your opponents just before every fight. You could definitely do so and potentially make the fights a lot easier. But I tend to just use the Haruspex really for the last battle. Is the big thing. And obviously some interesting ways to deal with your buddies down here. Alright, next up we've got the Agricultor, or your regular farmer. Food is power. If you don't have enough food, men will die. Dead men don't earn money. Make sure... Money? Oh, they don't earn money. Jeez. And make sure they're fed. So it's a pretty strong strategy. If you don't have the basic resources to provide to your men, they're not going to be able to fight very well. So let's go ahead and take a look at Farmer Joe, or Farmer Jim Bob, if you secret plug if you're if you haven't checked out my Stardew Valley Let's Play, go ahead and do that. So here we go. We've got the Agricultor, and basically his purpose is to make sure that you have the best food storage and production as you can. So hygienic food storage, learning to store food when clean will give you +4 food per day. Aqueduct irrigation also gives you increased food per day. Botany, again, food per day. And food preparation, more food per day. So you can see a pretty common theme. It's just like the Medicus. The Medicus does one thing and does it very well. It's the same thing with the Agricultor. He does one thing and he does it very well. He makes it so that you never really have to purchase food. Or if you have to purchase food, it's very, very rare that you have to do so. So overall, +4 from each of these, you're going to get +16 food per day. And if you have the Architect and the the food storage or the food cellar, you get even more food per day from that. And really, you can get it so that if you keep the Agricultor around along with the Architect improvement, you can make it so that you never need to buy food again, which is it's another thing that you don't have to manage, is probably the best benefit of it. But honestly, I see the benefits of some of the other employees as being more impactful than never having to buy food. But that's just me. So I don't really use the Agricultor, but again, if you're looking to go for a value game or something like that, you could certainly try it. But I prefer to go with some of the other things, preferably those that really upgrade my the effectiveness of my gladiators in battle. Next up, we've got the Vintner. Vintner is 100 coins, and he provides wine and magistrate favor. So in the same way that the Emptor provided favor abilities with the legate, the Vintner helps you with the magistrate. An in-house Vintner can produce wine right here in the Ludus, intimate with the magistrate. He can also be leveraged to increase favor. Let's go ahead and hire him and take a look at his different abilities. So large casks means +4 wine per day, which is nice. Quality casks, more wine per day, and viticulture, +4 wine per day. So there you go. It does the same. He does the same thing in that respect as the Agricultor. He basically makes it so that you can produce wine and hopefully never have to buy that much wine again. Paired with the Architect, the Vintner can allow you to, with the wine cellars that you get from the Architect, you can basically make it so you never need to buy wine again, or if you need to buy wine, it's just because you're sending massive amounts of wine to bribe the magistrate or the legate. Speaking of which, you can do the same thing that the Emptor can do with the legate. You can do the same thing here with the Vintner for your magistrate. So you can increase your relationship with the magistrate every couple of days, and then you can increase the increase the effectiveness of your bribes with the magistrate. So make it so that little Tweedledee and Tweedledum down here, mostly Tweedledee, likes you a little bit better, gives you better fights, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and move on to the next employee. Next up, our second to last employee, we've got the Sacerdos. I'm not really sure how to say that. Consumes nothing, which is interesting. He has no upkeep, but he provides healing, training, and morale boost. Never speaks, but appears to boost all natural processes of those nearby. What are these strange lights? We'll find out here in just a second. All right. So we've got the Sacerdos. I'm just going to say Sacerdos. It just seems more Roman, I guess, more Latin to me. I don't really know. And basically, he's got a bunch of different prayers, each of them doing something different. Per Neptune, consume 1 water and provide 1 wine per day. So he does a little bit of that Jesus thing, turns water into wine, and helps to provide a little bit more wine so that you can better bribe off these guys down here, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Per Juno, occasionally upgrade a gladiator's defense training. So the difference that we've got here, and you can see occasionally upgrade gladiator strength, increase fighting proficiency, faster reaction when fighting under AI control, occasionally upgrade a gladiator weapon, occasionally heals them automatically under the gaze of Venus, and then increases gladiator agility every once in a while. So you might think that this kind of overlaps with the Educator, and it kind of does, but the Sacerdos, what happens is basically the Sacerdos occasionally gives a flat upgrade in levels to one of your gladiators, whereas the Educator increases the speed in which your gladiators learn those levels, basically increasing the upgrades, the speed at which they gain new levels in those different areas of training, versus the Sacerdos, who just gives them a flat boost every once in a while. I think it's every 7 days, I believe, is how it operates. So every 7 days, each of these ticks off. So you can just get it so that, +1, agility, +1 strength, +1, AI efficiency, all that sort of stuff. So the Sacerdos, honestly, I prefer to go for the Educator first. So getting the Educator and the Faber and the Architect to begin with. But then once the Architect is done, I replace him generally with the Sacerdos and then start getting these flat +1 level upgrades. So the Educator is great for getting your gladiators to a better fighting ability and training them up quickly. But once you start getting to higher levels, it takes longer and longer to train those levels. The Educator helps with that, but what the Sacerdos does is it basically just gives your gladiators a flat level in one of these abilities and increases them that way. So again, I think that Sacerdos is one of those characters that you keep once you get them, you keep them for a while, but I tend to get other characters first before going for the Sacerdos. But that's just me. Again, long-term value, definitely. Perdivinus means that they heal automatically, so this kind of replaces the Medicus, but it doesn't do it as efficiently. But he definitely has a lot of other benefits to what he does. So anyways, that's the Sacerdos, and we'll move on to our last employee, the Bard. All right, our last employee, we've got the Bard. Consumes 1 food and 1 water a day and provides morale. He actually provides a whole lot more than that. So this entertainer is a constant morale boost for your gladiators, with upgrades helping them to level up and heal faster. So you can see right there, it helps them to level up, not just morale, and heal faster. So let's go ahead and hire him. He's nice and cheap. And let's see what we've got here. So we've got a bunch of different songs. And honestly, it's one of those things where if you're a big fan of like traditional RPGs, you can tell, like, the bards can be really powerful. But if you're not in that world, I guess, then you wouldn't realize that the Bard honestly was one of the last employees that I ever picked up. One, because he's at the bottom of the list, but also because I just kind of had this bias against him. But the Bard is actually really powerful, guys. Really powerful. So, Song of Venus. Learning this song will boost Gladiator's strength training speed. Song of Ceres, boost healing speed. Song of Diana, boost weapon training speed. You can see a little bit of a theme going on here. So learning the Song of Juno will increase your gladiators' morale, +1 morale. So this is basically +1 morale per day. Singing lessons, again, +1 morale. Song of Minerva, increase defensive training speed. And Song of Vesta, increase agility training speed. So again, this is just another, the Bard is basically another way of looking at the Educator. So the Educator has one benefit, or has one button that increases all training speed. So he's really super specialized in that. He increases all training speed just for one upgrade. The Bard has a number of different upgrades that upgrade different parts of your training, but then it also increases morale. So you can get +2 increased morale per day. And basically this means that your gladiators, we'll just click into one of our gladiators here. He's going to slowly over time just become more and more content, more happier, really, because the Bard is around. Eventually you're going to get to the point where all your gladiators are max morale. And they're going to fight longer, they're going to fight better, they're going to fight harder, and they're going to be more likely to stick around. They're going to be more likely to stay. So the Bard actually very powerful when it comes down to it, especially keeping your gladiators happy and increasing their training speed. So with that, that's the last of the employees. I guess I'll kind of give a recap on what I tend to do. So what I tend to do is when it comes to it, I tend to go for, when it comes to hiring employees, go for the Architect and the Faber and the Educator early on. Again, with the Architect, you use those, use his permanent abilities, build as many of the different buildings as you can, make it so that you have reduced resource costs, make it so that you have reduced training time, all that sort of stuff. And then once you're done with the upgrades that you want from him, you fire him, you get rid of him. And you do the same thing with the Faber. You use the Faber to upgrade a lot of your gladiators to the max level, use those automatic upgrades, make it so that it's easier to upgrade them in that way. Keep your stuff repaired, so that they don't, the gear doesn't accidentally break during battle, and then use the Educator to get your gladiators up to fighting shape as quickly as possible. Once your Faber and your Architect, so the Faber is kind of a meh. You can fire him if you want, or not. You can keep him around. But the Architect, once you've built everything that you need with the Architect, get rid of him and go for the Bard. Actually, get the Bard, and so that you're increasing your gladiators' morale, you're helping them train once again with the different songs that he has, and then if you want to get rid of the Faber, go ahead and get the Sacerdos, So basically, end game, it would look like Sacerdos, Bard, and Educator. So going for the employees who really increase the training speed, increase the speed at which your characters get up to basic training levels. This is between the Sacerdos and the Bard. Your gladiators will both heal more quickly. Same thing with the Educator. So you've got a little. So between the three of them, you actually get kind of a discount Medicus right there. So that's kind of the end game. That's what it looks like for me. That again, this is my general strategy. So feel free to experiment with all sorts of different stuff as you like. I mean, if you wanted to go for a super value game, you could go for Vintner, Emptor, and Agricultor, and you could make it so that you never buy food again, you never buy wine again, and all you have to do is worry about water. And so, anyways, but that's just my general strategy. If you guys have any strategies, if there's anything that you found that works, or anything that I missed, anything I glazed over, go ahead and just leave a comment down in the comments section. So this is a quick employee guide. I guess not that quick. It's actually been pretty long. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover in this game. It looks basic, it looks simple, but this game is actually pretty complex. So, anyways, thanks for tuning in, and be sure to check out my Domina Endless series if you haven't already done so. Keep up to that, having some fun with Endless mode here in Domina. So, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time here on Additional Pylons Games. Thanks for watching Additional Pylons Games. Click one of the boxes to watch another video, and click the circle to subscribe and join the APG Zealots. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share it with your friends. Comment below, and I'll see you next time here
on Additional Pylons Games.